British Games Institute, or BGI, recently became a, quote, very real thing in the UK. It had previously been a campaign to get a gaming equivalent to the BFI, the British Film Institute. And it's all about flying the flag for video games as a culture and getting money for games that would otherwise never see the light of day. Well, that campaign became a very real, proper, working organisation when the BGI merged with the National Video Game Foundation back in February. So I caught up with BGI co-founder Ian Livingstone recently to talk about all this and what it means for the UK games industry.
Hello, I'm Ian Livingstone.
Hi.
I guess you could say I'm a veteran of the games industry, starting in 1975, founding Games Workshop, Final Fantasy game books, launched Tomb Raider with IDOS, and these days I invest in independent studios. I'm also a non-exec director of Sumo, and of course one of the co-founders behind the BGI initiative, the British Games Institute, for those who do not know.
So Ian is quite a figure in the industry, and he's an all-round contributor to fantasy, gaming, nerdy culture through things like the Fighting Fantasy game books, Games Workshop, and so on. He's actually a former president and CEO of IDOS Interactive, and he's now pouring all of his efforts into the BGI. So I guess we should get this out of the way first. What is the BGI and what's it going to be doing? That actually sounded a lot more aggressive than I wanted it to.
Well, it's an idea that Rick Gibson and I had quite a long time ago, and we thought it's only right that the games industry has its own national agency, its own centre of gravity. And the same way the film has got the BFI, other entertainment mediums have their own support and agencies, and the games industry doesn't. It's got two great trade associations in Yuki and Tiger, but they are membership funded organisations and campaigning, raising the awareness of games, but there's no independent, publicly funded body to represent the games industry. So we think that's long overdue to focus on a number of items. Of course, culture, which we're going to do mainly through the merger process with the MVA, also skills issue and funding issue. So it's those key things I think require sort of national support rather than just the industry having to defend itself all the time.
So I wanted to know, does gaming still have an image problem, a perception problem that just needs to be changed?
Well, it's a relative new industry, and those who've grown up with games do not fear them whatsoever. But a lot of people in power, and especially in the media, in traditional media, are not really aware of the impact that games are having in a positive sense. Games is an industry worth $100 billion globally, 2.2 billion people playing games, 10 million a week joining the games industry. Games is at the forefront, at the spearhead of any modern technology, drove the revenues of Facebook, drove the revenues for smartphone adoption, AR, VR, mixed reality, probably blockchain. It's always driven by games. Artificial intelligence came out of games companies. It's at the forefront. And of course, games in the media is always represented largely in a negative sense. Grand Theft Auto generated $1 billion in 3 days. That's the largest entertainment franchise in any medium. And we're very good at making games in the UK. All the blockbuster video games, all the hit mobile games, PC games. We've got a long history of making games from the 1980s because we're a very creative nation and we're early adopters of high technology. Put those two things together, hey presto, video games. So it's an industry we should be proud of and should do more from a public point of view to support it.
So where did the idea for the BGI actually come from, and why did Ian Livingstone take it personally upon himself alongside his partner in all this, Rick Gibson, to actually get this done?
I think we're missing the cultural messaging. People are aware of the cultural impact of film and TV and books, but they don't understand the cultural significance of games. And therefore, that has a bit of a negative knock-on effect that parents don't see the games as a worthwhile career opportunity for their children. Investors don't see the investment potential of investing in UK talent and game studios. And the cultural messaging about how it's impacting on society is just being missed, and it's not really seen as an art form, even though there's a huge amount of impact of games on society, as we all know. Games can be used as a contextual hub for learning. If people can part their prejudice against one or two titles that children shouldn't be playing anyway, by the way, and think what's happening cognitively when you're playing a game, problem solving, learning intuitively, it can fail in a safe environment, encouraged to play again. You're not punished for making mistakes. The game urges you to try again, so everyone can win eventually. Games like Minecraft, building these wonderful 3D architectural worlds, sharing them with their friends. I mean, who would want to become an architect after playing Minecraft? And games kind of are effectively a management simulation. When you're playing Roller Coaster Tycoon or any management simulation like that, learning about understanding the physics of building the rides, the pricing of the rides, the staffing of the rides, and tweak the parameters until you get it working efficiently. This is kind of multidisciplinary learning. And again, that's totally missed by mainstream media. So we're trying to get that messaging that games goes way beyond entertainment to help, make us better human beings. Play is natural, and we learn through play. End of story.
So clearly the BGI is going to be fighting the cultural battle for gaming, but I wanted to know how else is it going to be helping? Is it going to be bringing in outside cash into the games industry just like the BFI does for movies?
Film gets 170 million of public funding, and yet games only gets £4 million of public funding. And the ratio of funding to revenues generated is completely out of sync. And therefore, we are going to lobby for getting government funding for the BGI so we can fund culturally diverse games that would not ordinarily be made. I think that's important at ground level to get games being made that aren't always commercially driven, but that help build the industry. Government's made it quite clear that there's no money for new agencies, no particular appetite for new agencies. So what we've done is decide to raise funds privately. The merger with the NBA is also going to result in the cultural tick box being addressed very early on. We've got a great way of now of addressing the cultural issue with putting on festivals and through obviously the physical presence of the MVAs there. And we want to sure we can then address the money issue. So we're going to try and raise money privately and then go to government, perhaps through the British Business Bank if they're amenable to it, and ask them if they can match fund whatever we are able to raise.
So what does the big merger between BGI and the NVF actually mean for both of those organisations and the industry as a whole?
It's a great step forward, and it kind of cements the reality of the BGI, because as you say, it's not much more than the concept right now, but we've had 500 studios sign up to support the BGI, over 10,000 signatures were very quickly signed on change.org of saying this is a great idea. So the games industry understands that we need a national agency, and some of the great and the good outside the games industry also recognize it, from Lord Putnam to Nicola Mendelsohn, who runs Facebook in Europe, and many others thinks, yes, the games deserves its right and proper place now as a cultural force and economic force, and it makes a huge social impact on the UK and beyond because of what we do as an industry on a global basis. And remember, this is a good news story. Quality jobs, high skilled talent, regional, it's not focused around London, transferable skills, IP creating, knowledge economy, digital exports. 90% of games are exported digitally. Immediately you press the button of launch. What's not to like in the post-Brexit world?
There already are a couple of trade bodies in the UK, UKI and Tiger. How do they feel about it? How do they feel about the fact that there's now a British Games Institute, an organisation that seems like it's going to be doing an awful lot of work on behalf of the industry?
They've been very welcoming. They've both given their support. We had quotes from both of them. They're both invited to sit on as advisors, as observers on the BGI trustee board. We're performing a different function to them. We're going to dispense public funds, which they're not able to do because they're membership funded, therefore they'd be conflicted in that area. And we're able to do that as the BGI because we are a totally independent national agency. The same way as the BFI, there are 6 trade bodies in film plus the BFI. There is absolutely no overlap at all. No, we're going to be lean and mean. As I say, we're going to raise private funds, and hopefully that'll be match funded by the government through whatever vehicle they choose. And we're going to try and keep the overhead as low as possible. And through the MVA, we're going to try and make that profitable. So the BGI is a charity, but it's going to not be a sort of vehicle that strips a lot of the funds. As there's no point in funding the go-between. It's important that the money spent on culture, on skills, creating new courses to help skill up the workforce, and of course help get funding to studios that need it. Well, it's getting momentum, and I haven't met one person inside the games industry who thinks it's a bad idea yet. As long as we can fulfill our ambition, I think everyone will think it's a good thing. What we need to do, as I said earlier, is to put the cultural case for games to a much wider base than it is now. The industry has tended to be always in defense mode, always having to defend itself rather than promote how great it is.
So that was our interview with BGI co-founder and fantasy nerd leader Ian Livingstone. What a lovely bloke. Thanks very much to Ian for talking to us and for his time, and of course to Rick Gibson for actually getting in touch. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you, mate. So gaming still has an image problem and a bit of a funding problem in the UK, but at least there's now an actual organisation dedicated to improving both of those things. Let us know in the comments what you think about the idea of the BGI and what actually you think they should be doing to help improve gaming's image. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it, and please do subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this every single day. There's another video right there which you could watch right now if you want, and a link to Patreon if you want to support the channel. See you next time.